Today we're gonna go from morning to night. Hey there, my name is Ali. You can find all my work on Instagram and the screen in front of you. Well, today we got the first 1000 views, which is pretty amazing. The next goal now is gonna be getting 10,000 views. If you have any comments or anything you wanna leave, you can leave them below and make sure you subscribe and let's start. Okay, we'll start by dragging our first photo to Photoshop, which is a pretty amazing photo actually. And then we will drag our sky photos, and all these photos are available in the description below. You can download them and just follow along with us. Okay, I'm gonna make the sky like big enough for our canvas, and I'm gonna crop our photo a little bit because it's too like wide. Okay, something like that, maybe a little bit from here too. Okay, and we have our sky photo. Okay, now we wanna erase, we will put the sky photo below and we wanna erase the sky from here. So I'm gonna use the pen tool and I'm just gonna like keep going all the way around the rocks until it's over. I'm gonna skip that part just for the sake of time. Okay, that was our photo. Now I moved it down a little bit and I cut the sky. Okay, what we're gonna do now, maybe I'll move it up a little bit. What we're gonna do now, we want to blend this one with the sky or the environment behind it. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna duplicate this one first because I don't wanna like edit on the main photo. Then I'm gonna press right click, apply image to the mask. So now I can press Ctrl and T and go to the warp tool. What I wanna do is I wanna make some sort of a curve like this. So I'm gonna pull this up. Yes, and this one also. And I'm gonna pull this one a little bit down and maybe pull from here up a lot. Okay, and pull this one down a little bit. Okay, what I wanna achieve with this is, okay, when I press crop, I wanna that line to be my horizon line, or like the line where the rocks or where I put my model. So okay, that's looking good now. Maybe up a little bit. Okay. Now we're gonna make this one blend with the sky. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add a curves adjustment layer, link it below to it, and then I'm gonna like drastically reduce the highlights and maybe the midpoints a little bit as well. Okay, it's already now looking good, somehow blended. We just need to do the coloring now. So I'm gonna add a new layer, make sure it's linked below. I'm gonna click on that color to sample it. Maybe I'll go a little bit brighter and more to the orange. Okay, now I'm gonna use my brush, make sure it's soft brush and a little bit low opacity, and I'm just gonna like paint orange here at the places. I'll reduce the opacity even more, paint some orange at the places where I feel there should be like some orange light, and then maybe do one like for all, settle one, and reduce even the opacity more and just do some here and there. Okay, maybe one here like that. Okay, and then I'm gonna take a dark blue color, something like that maybe, and I'll do the same but on the other side to match that area. Okay, I'm gonna paint this with blue, dark blue. Okay, now I'm gonna change the blending mode to overlay in this photo. You see now the before and after, it made this part a lot like orange because of the color behind, and this part blue because of the sky behind of it. Okay, now I don't like one thing about the sky, which is this part is like it's very bright blue. So how I'm gonna fix it, I'm gonna go to hue and saturation. I'm gonna go to my cyans. This is a little bit cyan, but it's also in the blue area. So I'm gonna pull this one a little bit to the right. And if I like reduce the opacity, it only targets the blues. So What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push it a little bit to blue, darken it a little bit, and reduce its opacity. Okay, maybe darken it even more. Okay, now we see the before and after. I just darkened that part and reduced the opacity of it. Okay, now what we're gonna do is I wanna make this part a little bit more colorful. So I'm gonna add a layer above of that. And then I'm gonna go take a yellow color first. We'll start by yellow on this layer with the brush. Make sure it's not so like weak opacity. I'll do it with a gradient even, it will be even better. But you have to use that one, the reflected gradient. Okay, what I'm gonna do first, I'm gonna hold shift so it goes in a straight line, and I'm gonna draw a gradient like this. So now we have this sort of yellow. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna move the yellow a little bit to orange, and then move my mouse a little bit higher and do the same. And then I'm gonna put it more to orange, move the mouse up a little bit. No, I want to move it more up, something like that. Okay, then move it like somewhere here, like that. Okay, and another one at the red maybe, like that. And then at the magenta, like that. That's too strong. I'll just reduce the opacity a little bit. Okay, and then we'll go to the blue and we'll do the last one here. Okay, now this looks horrible, of course, but we're gonna change it to overlay mode. And I don't want it affecting these parts because it looks very odd because of the yellow on top of the blue. So I'm gonna take my eraser tool and I'm just gonna erase the parts here and there. Maybe I'll reduce the opacity a little bit to make a more subtle erase. Erase this and that like this. Yes, and now what I'm gonna do is go to the move tool. Maybe I'll move this down a little bit. We have this sharp line, so I'm gonna get rid of it. Yes, like that. Okay. Now this one maybe reduce the opacity a little bit. Okay, so now we see where the before and after. We added some like interest to our photo. Okay. Now this is too orange compared to this, so I'm gonna go add a layer on top of the mountains. And then I'm gonna go again to orange. And I'm gonna paint some orange here and there. Just make sure it's on like one big one maybe. Make sure it's on overlay mode and just reduce the opacity a little bit. Okay, now I'm gonna add one final thing. I'm gonna add a curves adjustment layer and just bump up the highlights a little bit. Yes, and now I'm gonna press Control and I. This will erase what I just did. But then I'm gonna go to a brush, use white color. Now wherever I paint, it will like dodge the highlights a little bit. So I'm gonna just make it a little bit brighter at some places. Maybe here, because it's gonna be facing some of the light. Okay, I want to also get rid of this shooting star. It's some sort of distraction, I guess. So I'm gonna go to the clone stamp tool. I'm gonna rasterize my layer. I'm gonna zoom in. I'm gonna hold Alt. What clone stamp does, it samples from here and it puts it here. So I'm gonna press click here. Then I'm gonna hold Shift and press click here. So it will draw that line. Okay, now we're done with the shooting star. We're done. We need now to add our model. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to my model image, add him, make sure he's on like top of everything. I'm gonna use the magic wand. Cutting him shouldn't take time because there's different in contrast. Okay, this and this, and then the sky, and that, and between his legs. Okay, I'm gonna add the layer mask. Press Ctrl and I because it's inverted. Go to my brush, make sure it's hard brush with 100% opacity, and just make sure it's black also, and just delete that. And then delete like everything around as well. Okay, now we need to like be more precise when deleting the rest. Yes, something like that. Okay, that's pretty good. And then there is this part at his cap. I don't like it. Okay, and I'm gonna also delete some of the whites which were remaining. Doesn't look good. You can of course do that with like the pen tool, but it will take more time, but it will look better at the end. Okay, now we're done with the man. I'm gonna place him. We forgot that part. Okay, I'm gonna place him. Let's pull a ruler just in the middle. It will snap automatically to the middle of our canvas. I want to put him in the middle. So I'm gonna reduce his size. Yes, something like that should be good. But then I have a problem. I don't want that rock behind him actually because it's distracting on him. It doesn't make him look like very clear. So I'm just gonna go to this layer and use my polygonal lasso tool and just select it and press backspace or delete, get rid of it. So now the man is more like clear. Okay, I want to press Ctrl and T and flip him horizontal because he's lighted from that way and this is where our light source is coming from. I'm gonna put him here. To get rid of this ruler, I'll just pull it all the way to the left. I'm gonna add a curves adjustment layer, link it below, and then I'm gonna reduce the highlights a lot and add a little bit of the shadows and maybe bring this blacks a little bit higher. I don't know, this looks so dark for me, so I'm gonna pull the highlights up a little bit. uh Maybe pull this. Yeah, that looks good now. Okay, what I'm also gonna do, add a new layer, make sure it's linked below as well. Use a brush, orange brush, make sure it's soft brush, and just add orange to that part of the man. Change it to overlay mode. Okay, now we have like the man, we have everything. I don't like the a lot of white areas here. It like seems so empty, so I'm gonna do one thing. I'm gonna take that layer, which is the ice itself. I'm gonna hold Alt and duplicate it at the top. Okay, now we have another copy of it. I'm gonna move it something like that, reduce its size. We're just gonna add like some sort of framing. Okay, and then I'm gonna erase that part, and then I'm gonna hold Alt again and just move it to the other side. Control T and just rotate it, add like different shapes of rocks, maybe reduce its size even, and put it somewhere here and get rid of that also. Okay, now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use those both, press Ctrl and E, that will merge them, then press Ctrl and M. This will open our curves adjustment. So I'm gonna just make sure they are absolutely dark, not like totally black, but just almost totally black. Yeah, something like that. And also they're very close to the camera, so it makes sense that they're a little bit blurred. So I'm gonna add a Gaussian blur to them, something like, no, that's too strong. Something like that is good. Okay, now we added some more to the photo. Okay, what we wanna do also now, maybe color grade the photo. We're done with everything, so I'm gonna start with a curves adjustment layer. I'm gonna pull the blacks up a little bit, bring the shadows down, and pump up the highlights even more. Okay, let's see. Okay, that's looking good, but this part is too strong, I believe. So I'm gonna control click. So I go to the layer. I'm gonna just reduce the opacity a little bit. Okay. Okay, let's jump back to the curves. Okay, now we're gonna add, I will add below the curves, I'll add two brightness and contrast layers. This is like to create a vignette. What I'm gonna do is the first one, I'm gonna go with -50. And the second one, I'm gonna go with 50. Now they just canceled out each other. But what I'm gonna do on the dark one, I'm gonna go to a gradient, make sure it's the circle gradient, and with the black color, I'll just hold shift and draw a circle of black. This will remove the darkness from the places I want. So now I'm creating some sort of a vignette at the middle of my photo. Maybe increase the opacity a little bit. Yeah, okay, you see now we just created a vignette. And the bright one, I'm gonna stand on the layer mask, press Ctrl and I, and then make sure I'm using white color and do the same. But this is the opposite, like it adds lightness to the image. I'll add a little bit of also here because this place should be bright, and maybe one more. Okay, now we created, you see these two, they made a vignette more focused on the middle point of the. I'm gonna just reduce the opacity of them a little bit. I believe it's too strong. Okay, and then we have add our curves adjustment layer. Now I'm gonna add a gradient map. I'm gonna use this one here. I like it, but we're gonna use it like something like maybe 6% and put it to color mode. See what it did? It added like a little bit of color to our photo. Okay, it looks good now. Okay, then I'll do another final adjustment, which I'll go to the curves adjustment layer. I want to add some colors to the highlights and some to the shadows. So I'm going to go to the red. I'm going to add cyan to the shadows and some reds to my highlights. That's too strong, something like that, it's good. And then I'm going to go to the blue channel, maybe add a little bit of blue to the shadows, or maybe not, just, yeah, some yellow to the highlights. I'll go to the green and I'll just try and see. Maybe I'll add some magenta to the highlights or greens. I don't know. I like the magenta even more, but I'll just do a very subtle one. Okay, you see what the curves adjustment did? It just colored some of parts of our photo. Now I'm gonna press Ctrl, Alt, and Shift, and then press E. This will merge everything I just did into a new separate layer, so I can go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. Okay, now what I'm gonna do in the camera raw filter, I'll maybe decrease the highlights a little bit, increase the exposure, the brightness, and maybe reduce the shadows a little bit, decrease the clarity. I don't want the photo to be very sharp because it's filled with like texture in the stars and in the rocks. And I'll go to the FX module, dehaze, reduce the dehaze. Yeah, reduce it, but just a little bit, something like -3, and add a little bit of vignette, also something very low because we already added our vignette with the brightness and contrast. Okay, so this is our final product, and this is where we started here, and that is our final product. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, guys. Make sure you subscribe for more. Thank you.